The story begins in 1944, and the Nazis are about to get the spear that killed Jesus. But when the train carrying the spear heads for Berlin, Indiana Jones throws a penny on the track and destroys the train, winning the war for America. 24 years later, Indy's now like super old, and the world has forgotten about him. Indy's super depressed because he and Marion are separated after Mutt died in Vietnam after trying to attack the Viet Cong with a knife while yelling, "What are y'all looking at, daddy-os?" before being murdered to death. Then Indy's goddaughter, Helena, shows up looking for the Dial of Destiny, an ancient device made by Archimedes that allows its user to travel through time. Luckily for her, Indy has one half, but then a really mean bad guy named Voller shows up. He's a Nazi who wants to use the dial to go back in time and ensure that the Nazis win World War II. Indy gets ready to fight, but Helena goes, "Yoink!" and runs away with the dial, laughing and calling Indy a moron. Indy's doomed, but then Sala shows up and helps Indy escape. And tells Indy that Helena's going to try to sell the dial on Pawn Stars Morocco. So they go to the airport and Indy's like, "Thanks, Sala." And Sala's like, "No problem, bro. You know, I have a passport. I could come too." And Indy thinks about it and says, "That'll be awesome." So the two get on a plane and fly to Morocco. In Morocco, Indy and Sala go to the auction and find Helena trying to sell the dial. Indy's like, "Helena, no!" But Helena laughs and says, "Shut up, old man. I'm taking over this franchise. I'm the star now. I'm better than you at everything, and there's nothing you can do about it." Then Voller shows up and uses his Nazi powers to erase Helena from existence. And then her super annoying sidekick is also obliterated from existence. And then Voller gets the dial and is like, "Mine!" And Indy and Sala are like, "No!" And they chase after Voller. But then they're about to be murdered to death when somebody comes along and saves the day. It's Grown-Up Short Round! Indy and Sala and Short Round all hug each other, and they're so happy to be back together. Indy's like, "We gotta get the other half of the dial before Voller does." And then Short Round's like, "I've been searching for the other half, and I think it's on a shipwreck not far from here." And Indy and Sala are like, "Sweet." Indy, Sala, and Short Round go to Greece, where they rent a cargo ship and sail out to sea. When they get to the site of the wreck, they hold their breath for a really long time and swim down to an old shipwreck where they find the other half of the dial. But when they come back up, they find Voller waiting for them. Voller's like, "Give me the dial." And Indy's like, "Nope." Voller's like, "I'll use my Nazi powers to erase your friends from existence." And Indy's like, "No!" And gives him the dial. Voller laughs, ha ha ha, and puts the two halves together and vanishes. And everyone's like, uh-oh. Indy and his friend hurry back to Greece. But when they arrive, they're horrified to discover that everything has changed. Once they get ashore, Indy, Sala, and Short Round find giant concrete buildings everywhere, and Nazi flags everywhere, and statues of Hitler everywhere. Indy and his friends are attacked by futuristic Nazis, but are saved by Marion, who is the leader of the resistance against the Nazis. And Indy's dad is there too. Indy's like, Dad! And Henry Jones Sr. is like, Son! And they both hug each other. Marion explains that with the dial, the Nazis won World War II, and they've taken over the world. And Salah's like, what are we going to do? And he's like, I'm getting too old for this. And Short Round's like, we can't give up, Indy. And then he's like, who said anything about giving up? We're going to get the dial back and screw all the Nazis. And they all hold hands and yell, screw all the Nazis.
Indy and his friends sneak across Europe, going through cities, farms, and fields, killing every Nazi they can along the way until they reach Berlin. Once there, they rush into the city and head straight to Hitler's Pyramid of Doom! Indy and his friends sneak into Voeller's office. There they find Voeller on the phone, where he says, Yes, my Fuller, everything's ready. It's time to begin the master plan. And then he leaves. Indy goes to the desk and looks at Voeller's notes, and he learns that the Nazis have discovered that the Dial of Destiny isn't just a time machine, but the control knob for the God machine, a machine that God used to create the universe. Whoever reaches the machine and uses the dial to control it will gain the powers of God and rule over time and space forever and ever times infinity. Indy realizes that Hitler is going to go back in time to use the machine, become God, rule over humanity forever, and ruin Christmas!
Indy's like, screw that! And Salah and Short Round and Marion and Indy's dad are all like, yeah, screw that!
They all make it to Hitler's secret airport, where a quadrillion Nazis are being loaded onto the Nazi Zeppelin of Doom. Indy and his friends get into a plane and go after the Zeppelin. And they manage to catch up to it and fly inside, but then they're caught. Indy and his friends are brought into the Zeppelin control room, where they all come face to face with Hitler. Hitler goes to Indy and he's like, I remember you, Allied pig! You thought you could stop me. You did in the past, but not anymore. Then Hitler goes to the windows, activates the dial, and the portal appears in the sky. Indy and the others are helpless, and they can only watch as the Zeppelin of Doom enters the portal. When the light fades away, Indy realizes that Hitler doesn't know how to properly use the dial, because instead of being at the God machine, they've gone back in time to a World War I battlefield. everything seems hopeless. But then Marion's like, "It's Morbin time!" And then she morbs all over the Nazis. Now free, Indy and his friends face Hitler, who's like, uh-oh. And Indy and all his friends rush him and cause the Zeppelin to crash. Indy wakes up and sees that only Hitler and Voller have survived. Hitler uses the dial to create another portal, and the two flee. Indy and his friends rush after him into a really cool chase through time. When Indy and his friend finally catch up to Hitler, they're shocked to find themselves in a golden temple. They continue on and find themselves at the very edge of eternity, in the place where the universe was created. Then Indy sees Hitler in front of the God Machine. Indy runs towards Hitler and tries to stop him. But he's too late. Hitler turns around, and he now has the power of God. Hitler says, "Ha ha ha ha! I now control time and space. There's nothing you can do to stop me, a pig!" And then Indy shoots him dead. The movie is over. The end. Just kidding. Hitler laughs and says, "Fool! Bullets cannot stop a god!" And he turns the dial, creating the universe. And he takes out his Pokeball and throws it, summoning Millard Fillmore, the 13th President of the United States.
Fillmore.
Fillmore gets ready to fight, only to be immediately vaporized by Hitler. Hitler activates his Super Saiyan mode, and Indy goes Super Saiyan, and they both Super Saiyan on each other until Indy realizes he can't go Super Saiyan because he doesn't have enough Dragon Balls or whatever. Hitler attacks Indy until Henry Jones Sr. yells, "Junior!" and Hitler chucks Indy off the platform. Henry Jones Sr. charges Hitler and attacks him with his awesome kung fu skills, and then the others attack Hitler, but he's immune to their attacks. And he climbs back onto the platform and takes out his gun and shoots Hitler, but Hitler stops the bullet. And Indy's like, uh-oh. And then Hitler shoots him with his own bullet. Indy's friends yell and scream in despair. Hitler then floats above them all and then zaps them with evil electricity, which really hurts. Indy tries to take the dial off the God Machine, but he can't. He's too badly hurt, and he falls back onto the platform. He feels himself dying. But then he hears his friends yelling in pain. And he wants to help them, but he doesn't know how. But then he gets an idea. Summoning all his strength, Indy turns the dial and then leaps into the time vortex and travels forward in time. Hitler zaps the others for a few more seconds until he stops, and he's like, "Ha ha ha ha, time for you all to die! And once you're dead, you'll be super dead, and I will be God forever, and Christmas will be ruined!" Then Indy suddenly shows up again, and he's like, "Hey Hitler, guess what?" And Hitler's like, "What, allied pig?" And Indy brings out the Ark of the Covenant and says, "Time's up." With Hitler now murdered to death, Indy's like, "Thanks God," and God's like, "No problem, bro." But then Indy's injuries catch up to him, and he collapses. The others run up and find that he's almost dead. But then Henry Jones Sr. gets an idea. He twists the dial, goes forward in time, comes back, and brings out the Holy Grail. Henry Jones Sr. then kneels beside Indy and uses the Grail to heal him. Indy and everyone else celebrates. The universe is saved. In present-day New York City, Indy and his friends emerge inside his apartment, relieved that their adventure is over. Henry Jones Sr. says, "Indiana, what are you going to do now?" And then Short Round says, "You could use the dial to find every treasure and artifact ever made." Indy looks down at the Ark, then the Grail, then the dial. He could use the dial to get the Shankra stones, the crystal skull of Akator, artifacts from Atlantis and Mardek's dimension, the staff of Moses, the heart of the dragon, the secret of the Great Circle, and every other artifact that's ever gotten away. He will be remembered and gain the fortune and glory he's always wanted. Indy then summons another portal and goes through with the Ark and the Grail. Then he comes back out and destroys the dial. "Why did you do that?" Sulla asks. Indy says he wanted to use the dial to get everything he's ever wanted. But then he realized that everything he really wanted is right here in front of him. His friends and family. They all mean more to him than all the gold, treasures, and artifacts in the world. He finally realized after all this time, the real dial of destiny was the friend we made along the way. But he did use the dial to get 2 things before coming back. Then Mutt suddenly comes in, rescued by Indy before he died in Vietnam. Marianne is overjoyed and hugs Mutt. And then Sala asks Indy, what was the other thing you got? Oh, just a little souvenir, Indy says. Then he takes off his equipment and it's like, okay everybody, let's party! And everyone's like, yeah! And then they all have a big party and live happily ever after.